The widow, nobody helped. They buried her husband just before the rain started. By the time the last clump of red earth hit the grave, most of the villagers had already turned their backs. Only the widow remained, kneeling in the mud, her black wrapper soaked, her eyes fixed on the crooked wooden cross that now marked the end of her old life. She walked home alone, carrying the mat her husband used to sleep on. The compound felt smaller, emptier. Doors that once welcomed her now stayed half shut, as if the walls themselves were watching her fall. Within days, the whispers began. Women spoke behind scarves, their eyes sharp with judgment. Men passed her house and looked at her land as if it already belonged to them. She lowered her head and said nothing. Silence became her shield. One afternoon, a man led her goat out of the yard in full view of the sun. She stood in the doorway and watched him go, her hands folded, her face blank. That night, under the weak glow of a lamp, she counted the few coins left in a cracked bowl. No tears came. Grief had hardened into something quiet and heavy. Children threw stones at her roof for fun. She patched the broken edge with mud and said nothing. At the market, traders turned away from her greeting. She returned home with an empty basket and steady steps. Relatives arrived with loud voices and pointed fingers, claiming her walls, her land, her future. She listened, nodded, and agreed with everything. They left smiling, convinced she was defeated. That night, she lifted a loose plank in the floor and pulled out a wooden box buried long ago. Inside were old papers, a faded map, and a small knife wrapped in cloth, things her husband had told her never to forget. By moonlight, she studied the map. It led beyond the village, toward the hills everyone feared. For the first time since the burial, her eyes sharpened. Before dawn, she went to the stream. The water reflected a woman calm and unreadable. She washed her hands slowly, as if preparing for a journey she had already chosen. When the neighbors gathered to divide her land, she sat on the ground and let them argue over her life. In the distance, a stranger watched from beneath a tree. She noticed him, but gave no sign. That evening, she fed the stray dogs that roamed the village edge. They circled her cautiously, then stayed. At first light, she left the village with a small bundle on her head. No one stopped her. They believed she was running away. In the forest beyond the hills, she met the stranger again. This time she spoke, her voice low, steady, and sure. Together they uncovered a hidden pit. Inside were tools, supplies, and sealed documents bearing the names of powerful men from the village, proof of stolen land and buried crimes. She burned the map but kept the papers. Silence had protected her. Truth would finish the work. Rain followed her back home that night, dogs padding behind her like shadows. Soon, rumors spread. Fear crept into familiar faces. The man who took her goat was questioned by outsiders. The woman who mocked her knocked at her door and begged. The door stayed closed. Officials and elders arrived. Papers changed hands. Men who once laughed were led away with bowed heads. The village that ignored her now stood quiet when she passed. She rebuilt her home, stronger than before. Children who once threw stones carried water for her. She fed them but told no stories. At sunset, she visited her husband's grave. The cross stood straight now, flowers growing where there had been only mud. When she returned to her doorway, dogs resting at her feet, her eyes were calm and watchful. She was no longer the widow nobody helped. She was the woman everyone remembered, proof that silence, when sharpened by patience, could be the most dangerous plan of all.